Okay, so here we're in my System of Education course. What are we in? Winter 2013. Got a class of 22 here. Anybody want a panorama to show everybody in the room? Somebody? Anybody? All of you? Panorama? Pick up your camera, computer. You can show. We're in the West Village G room 106, and this is the crew right here. They spent this morning reading each other's papers around an issue or challenge in the world of education from their vantage point, and I'm really happy Elliot Washor has been able to join us because you've been working at this for a long time to try to do something better for not only the students, but I assume the adults in the system of education. And you and Charles Mojkowski just came out with a book on Leaving to Learn, and we wanted to hear your thoughts about what you've been doing, who you are, why you do it, and what you think is problematic with the current system. But I understand you can take it from here, you can do the video, you can do your own, whatever you want to do, and then hopefully Hanneke will join us from the Netherlands to actually give her input as well. So thank you for coming, Elliot.
No problem. Hi, everybody. Okay. How do I see everybody, Chris?
Well, some other people we're trying not to get too many online right now because we want Hanneke to have space to get on there. So
all right.
If somebody shows our, listen, give me your, one of you show me your laptop and I'll put it up here. Mine's connected to this one. So.
Okay. No, that's great. Okay. So I'll start off by answering some of the, addressing some of the questions that Chris had about who I am, who we are at Big Picture Learning. So almost 20 years ago, Dennis Littky and I started Big Picture Learning. We've known each other since 1971 and have been working together. So a real long time. And the reason why we started Big Picture Learning was because of all the work that we had done previously with schools and systems and communities and families and students. And we had an opportunity in the state of Rhode Island to I don't want to use the word innovate because it's so overused, but we had an opportunity to actually on the ground generate a brand new school that had the combination of the best of comprehensive and career and technical education, as well as be a center of a community. And with that school be a design, not a model, because we weren't trying to stamp them out all over the place, for Rhode Island and the nation. And arguably, we've done quite a bit of that work. We designed a school that started with the interests and needs of each and every student, not starting from a specific curriculum or a content, but the academic content and the agency of a student, if you will, the social emotional learning, and the work-based learning, the academics, would all be integrated into a learning plan where the first question for every student and their families was, what are you interested in and what are your needs? We built a system of small schools in Providence, 6 small schools, 1 in Newport, built them from scratch. We're a line item in the state budget in Rhode Island, which is even more powerful than being a charter. Our budget is voted on every year by the state. So there is no real charter. We have our own board of trustees that governs us, and we had to rewrite a high school, the definition of a high school and what it was, and a middle school, and have it pass the state legislature and the state board of regents. So this was a highly rigorous process that took a couple of years to do. We've done this work now for 18 years. We have 60 schools in the United States. Our schools are in some of the toughest places in the toughest cities in the United States. We have schools on and abutting reservations. We have schools in 3 out of the 4 most violent cities in the United States, Camden being one of them, Oakland being another, and Detroit being another. We do systems of schools and places, and we have a high graduation rate, high attendance rate, high college going rate, and a high graduation rate from college, where independent researchers have found that over 70% of the students who graduate our schools actually do work around their interests that they had in high school. And we have some reasons behind that. A, because they built social capital with their mentors, and B, because of the relationships that they had with their advisors who they built social capital with. 70% of the students in our schools are people who are the first people in their families to get a high school diploma and or go to college. So we work basically with an at-risk population. Having said that, we have a few schools, because we wanted to do proof points for what we were doing, that are more middle class and wealthy. Right now I work with Susie and Jim Cameron. They developed a school, private school in Muse that has a lot of wealthy people attached to it, a lot of Hollywood people that you would recognize their names right away. And our design, and my wife coming through, I have a whole bunch of dogs, so you might hear a lot of dogs barking. They're just getting let out this morning here. So we have that kind of work going on as well, because we wanted to have proof points that this isn't just for students who are at risk. Having said that, we have an all-girls school in LA, all adjudicated, 70% with children, high graduation rate, high college going rate. And these are the that population of students who are mostly coming out of the foster care system are the most at-risk youth that are in the United States. We also have schools in the Netherlands, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Israel, South Korea, and a number of other places. So we have an equal number of schools, and probably even more than that, all over the world. We also have schools that follow our design that we don't even know about. So with that said, that's a brief overview of what Big Picture Learning has done, what I've done for the last 41 years, as well as taking you to, right now, a book that Charlie Mojkowski and I have written. Charlie was one of the people who was originally involved with Big Picture and the Met in Providence. And it's really about what you're talking about in terms of systems. So our system, the systems that I've seen all over the world, they're all basically the same. They have some different rules, and the countries have different cultural norms, but it's amazing to see how endemic the problems of systems are in education, and how long they've been going on since the church has been involved in schools, and since the manufacturing industries have been involved in schools, have put their mark on. When we go to school, only the hours that we work, seat time requirements, unions, management, it all kind of looks the same. It doesn't matter if you stay in school or go outside of school. It's a product of our entire culture. In the business world, in the law profession, medical, you can see the same problems systemically occurring all over the place. Having said that, we focused this book on not the union issues or the adult issues or the management issues from superintendents and commissioners, but the content issues, the issues of engaging students, and really about something that my mentor, Seymour Saracen, talked about, which is something called productive learning. And productive learning starts with students being engaged and starting with their interests. And you can hear Seymour's way of thinking about things in the practical work that we've executed in our schools. If you don't know who Seymour is, he was the head of the American Psychological Association for years. He recently passed away. He was 91 years old. He's a very close friend, and he's written over 40 books in education. He's the father of community mental health organizations in the United States, or the grandfather, depending upon where you came into his world. Really, really fascinating man, and it's too bad he's not with us anymore. So, what I'd like to do is show you. What I'd like to do is show you a quick animation that'll give you a synopsis of what the book is about.
Hi, my name is Gianna, and I'm a senior in high school. Did you know that one student drops out of high school every 12 seconds in the U.S.? When I found this out, I wanted to know why. According to the research I did, students drop out for 4 main reasons: bad grades, family issues, behavior issues, and just not being interested in school. That all makes sense, but I think there are some deeper reasons too. Schools try to fit us all into the same mold. Either you fit in or you drop out. But we're not all the same. We have our own interests and passions, and we want schools to understand that. We don't want to be told what should be important to us. We want to learn through what is important to us. To me, it all comes down to expectations. We know that schools have expectations of students. You know, standards and test scores. Sure, those things are important, but what about our expectations of school? What do we expect? We expect relationships. We want our teachers to respect us and know what our interests and passions are. We expect a relevant education. What we learn should matter to us and to others. We expect choice. My passion is the performing arts, so I started working with the Young Actors Studio at a local theater. I learned about improv and other acting techniques. I read plays, put on performances, and my school gave me credit for it. We expect a challenge, like when my friend's mentor at the hospital really challenged her to learn more about patient care. So she went and got her CNA. Now she has an after-school job in a field she's passionate about, and she's planning to pursue medicine in college. I have a friend who started her own business. She developed a product where she makes bags out of recycled magazines, and now she's developing a business plan and marketing her product as an entrepreneur. Another friend of mine started off not really caring about school. Then he found an internship with Play Out Loud, a fitness program which helps everyone get healthy. Now he runs his own personal training program for other students and is planning to head to college in the fall. So, what changed? He cared about what he was doing. The key is engagement. If our nation wants to stop the dropout crisis, schools have to make sure that we are connected to the things that matter to us. We want to be engaged in our learning. If schools give us a chance to do that, we'll go beyond their standards. Sure, without engagement, some students still manage to get by and graduate, but they haven't learned to think for themselves. They're used to being told what to learn, and it's not preparation for life. How do we set up schools to create productive learners? How can schools keep students really interested in learning? When I think about when I have been most interested in my learning, the best and most deep experiences took place outside of school. My internship at the theater, my summer acting program, and after-school dance classes, these are the things that connected me to a community of people who are passionate and know a lot about my interests. I was able to use the world as my classroom. It's funny to think that by letting students leave school to learn, you're actually making sure they stay in school. Want more ideas for keeping us engaged, excited, and in school? Check out Leaving to Learn.
Okay, so what we're talking about here and what we've done in our schools is create and develop and generate learning systems around each and every student. And we felt that schools could do that. We actually proved that they could. We proved that they could do it all over the country and arguably all over the world. And so that's a pretty radical notion about what a system is, a learning system embedded around every person. Basically, it's following a biological track. That's kind of who we are, and we can't stop it and deny it. It's just that schools take a track of, this is the content that you need to know, and this is a text, and this is text-based. It's not about performance. It's not about actually doing stuff, and the only way you're going to be assessed is through taking a paper and pencil test. When we know, and students know, that that's only a piece of how you learn. Does it take time to learn like that? Yeah. Does it take time? Are they good skills? Yeah, to have, but they're not the only skills, and they're not the best way to engage large portions of our population. So I'll stop there and kind of take some questions around your questions around, well, what's wrong with the system? Or whatever you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, I also want to say, Hanneke, thanks for joining us. I'm sorry we had some technical difficulty. Maybe, Hanneke, you want to quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll have this conversation?
Okay, I'm Hanneke Braake. Good afternoon. For me, it's good morning for you, I think. And I'm a female born in 1951, had a very happy time at elementary school and a very unhappy time at high school, went to art school and met my husband there, and now I am working for over 30 years as a consultant in helping schools to change their education, because it's not from a short time that the system is broken, as you says. I think it's going on for a long time yet, and I was one who suffered about that. That's who I am and what I'm doing, and I'm hoping you can understand my English.
All right, thank you. So anyway, I'm going to open it up to the class. So this is going to be tricky because I have to turn my microphone on, and then people who are by computers that are online have to turn my microphone off and your microphone on. So yes, Elliot. Yeah.
So Hanneke only told you a piece of who she is, but she also has started big picture schools in the Netherlands, Bulgaria, starting them in Romania, Bulgaria, Italy, and Turkey. So you might want to talk about that for a second, Hanneke.
Yes. When I went in 2004, I first met the idea of big picture learning, and then I wanted to see it for myself, and I took 20 teachers from the Netherlands and 20 principals from the Netherlands to big picture learning in Providence. And when they came back, they were the first ambassadors for a new movement in the Dutch schools, Dutch high schools, and that is now 10 years after that, almost 10 years after that, turned out to be an association of 24 schools in the Netherlands. And since January this year, we started the project with funding from the European Union to make schools in former Eastern Europe countries like Bulgaria, Romania, Turkey, to make them aware about the fact that education is, there are possibilities to do education in another way than they are used to do. And the people we met in January were very enthusiastic about the propositions of big picture learning, the 10 distinguishers, and the three main R's, the attention for relation, relevance, and rigor. And yeah, they are now waiting to start, and in June we are going to start with them to train them and to help them to start big picture schools in their countries. That's.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to open up to the floor here, and we'll see how. So I'm hoping that everybody's not shy. There's somebody's going to actually talk. So let's get on. Let's get the computers going, and who wants to ask a question first? Those who are already in line. So make sure. Oh my God, they're all shy. They're not shy when I'm up here. What the heck's going on here? Okay, so, but you got to turn your microphone on.
Oh my God. My question would be about in a big picture school, obviously, there's not a lot of focus on the test, like state testing, things of that nature. How do big picture schools and states where testing is important either get around that, or how do they handle that?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and I'll use New York as an example, because New York State has probably and arguably the highest high stakes tests, the New York State Regents exams that they've always had. We have 3 schools in New York City. They all have had an A rating, which is the highest rating that the state gives around schools, and that takes into consideration, in large part, test scores, as well as culture of the school and a few other factors. Most of our schools are very, very high free and reduced lunch. So, having said that, we also have a school up in Rochester, New York, and a school on abutting the Onondaga Reservation, which had a very, very high dropout rate, and now we've graduated graduation rates in the high 90s in that school with a Native American population. And they also take the New York State Regents exams. So how did we do that? Well, some of it, and although what I said sounds, and what you watched on an animation sounds like students are just out, they're only out 2 days a week. And they're out 2 days a week around their interests with their teacher advisors out with them. We give credit for learning 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, not just while you're in school. We do have classes. We organize classes not just in a formal traditional way, but in small groups, tutoring and online. So in large part, you get what you need. We were kind of blended learning before blended learning became a phrase, and using the interests of students to engage them and motivate them to stay in school and to make connections to adults who care about them and who share common interests. So really, that's how we do it. We do pay attention to the tests. You have to. We do have classes around certain materials. The biggest difficulty that we have, that everybody has, that I speak to, is around more higher level mathematics. Do we completely agree that every student has to get math in the same way at the same time? No. Do we agree that it's important? Yeah. That mathematics is very important? Yeah, but there's over 50 fields of mathematics, and we only teach 4 in our schools, in all of our schools, which is arithmetic, geometry, algebra, and calculus. There's another 40 fields out there that students may be interested in, we're just not teaching them. So there's a whole host of other pieces to go along with this, but yes, we do have to pay attention to those tests in order to keep our schools up and in good standing.
Okay, let's see if we can get some other people to, those with their laptops open. Dan, John, the rest.
Yeah, I'll add one other point.
Okay, go ahead, while they're getting organized.
In New York State, if you asked our principals what percentage of the time they're actually doing what we would consider big picture, and what percentage of the time they're doing work focused around the tests to get students to get a Regents diploma, they would say 80-20. 80% of the time they're working on the 10 distinguishes, as Hanneke mentioned, and 20% of the time they really do have to focus very intensively on the testing and that coursework.
In the Netherlands, it's the same. We have schools that are doing the big picture distinguishes for half of the school, and the other half are doing the regular program. And they do both the same tests, and last year it turned out to be that the big picture school did better tests than the regular school. So that's new evidence we have now in the Netherlands from one school yet, but it is very good for us.
So let's get a couple more questions here. John, you were getting up. Okay, Dan, are you on? You just got to be on. Oh. Okay.
if you just ask if we were to open a charter school, they've got done a lot of work, or other groups have done some great work. Do they see room for more charter schools, more educational opportunities?
Well, the question is, well, I guess more openly, I mean, what's the value of the charter schools, and is you opening a big picture school as a charter school a benefit, and to what end?
Yeah, well, about, I'd say 20–25% of our schools are charter in the United States. The rest are regular district schools, some alternative, some career and technical, some just regular schools. There used to be a benefit to being a charter. When charters were set up by a fellow named Ted Coldery in Minnesota to challenge the system, to do things differently. That's changed a lot, and by different he meant programmatically different, not about seat time requirements or about managing learning around testing. And what's happening with charters is a number of things. One is that they become highly regulated. And two, they become highly regulated around testing and test results. And so what people who have entered the charter market, private as well as not-for-profit, many of them, just created greater efficiencies to get better test scores and to get more students to graduation, most with the best of intentions. But that means that you're developing very traditional systems around efficiencies. And if you read the data around the systemic data, you'd see that this system and many others like medical systems are actually operating at a high level of efficiency. You can't get much more juice out of the lemon by doing the same thing over and over again. And that's Clayton Christensen, who talks about us and a few other groups a lot around disruptive technologies, would say that's when the disruption has to take place. And that's the move to a different program or a different way of doing things. But you can't get much more efficiencies out. And yet we still have programming like Race to the Top, which is much more focused around creating those efficiencies and managing them through online learning and through testing and through sometimes a competency-based system, which I would agree with in most seat time. But in most of the other cases, in the majority of the cases, it's just doing the same thing in a more efficient way and trying to get a better teaching staff in place. So that's what charters were set up for, and that's kind of what they become. It's the question that you all are asking as a group. How do systems really operate? Systems operate on standard operating procedures. And if you're trying to make a change from the center to the edge, hardly ever do you get to the edge. We've always been edge to the middle change. We said we can do it out here, and we'll do it out here so other people can fit the pieces into what they want to do. And that's a different kind of strategy around changing the system. So you're going to bump heads, and we know that, and fly right into the radar of a system, whereas most of the reform changes are happening from the middle to the edge. Two legitimate strategies, very few people going from edge to middle.
I don't know. You perfectly said. That's exactly the diagram that I have. I don't think I even showed you that diagram. We talk about the center versus the edge. So.
Well, we have an article you might want to read about this edge to the middle systems change.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's on our Leaving to Learn website. It's pretty
great.
Nice article. So I'm glad you got a I'd like to see that.
I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. Okay. So let's see if we got a couple other questions here.
Hanneke can give you the context of the system in the Netherlands as well, which, in many ways is like ours, culturally different, like I tried to allude to before. But I just did a trip all over India, Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Indonesia, including Singapore, Vietnam, Cambodia, all the way ending up in Hong Kong. And I went to schools, and I'm always shocked because I always see the same kind of schools and the students in the same kind of rows and the same kind of disengagement. It's amazing.
That's scary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So I want to allow Natasha to ask a quick question, and then Hanneke, you can add or build onto that in comment too, all right? So hold on.
Hi, I have a quick question for you about your big picture schools. I was wondering whether you use sort of a universal approach to your alternative assessment, or is each school different and approaching the needs of the students just in that particular dynamic?
Yeah. So depends if you're on Mars or on the moon, and you're looking back at Earth. So if you're on Mars, they all look the same. And if you're on the moon, they kind of look slightly different. So we have rubrics and assessments. Our assessments are narrative, exhibitions, of course, paper and pencil tests in some cases, but most, and also performance at their places where they have their LTIs, learning through internships. So they're actually assessed by teachers on their performance in real time around what they're doing in those places. And then there's exhibitions, and then there's narratives, and then there's written reports that students are doing. So the assessments come in a variety of a package. They all are the same in our schools depending on the student. The rubrics for them are pretty close, but they're not necessarily the same. We're now working on developing reliabilities around more reliability across schools, which we do not have around those assessments and those rubrics. This is a challenge because now it becomes a language problem, and every state, you know, this is being on the moon again. On Mars, they all look the same. On the moon, every state has different requirements, so the rubrics look slightly different. And we also have rubrics and assessments around social emotional learning, agency, work-based learning, as well as academics.
Wow.
And we can share those with you.
Okay. So I know Dan has a question, but Hanneke, I want to give you a chance before, and I know we should sign off in about 10 minutes or so, and you've been generous with your time. Hanneke, when we talk about the system of education here, I always talk about, as Elliot talked about, it's sort of like, you know, they're trying to make the factory work even better because they figure it's not actually producing the widgets that we want. So let's screw let's screw it in tighter, and let's create more processes by which the factory is more efficient and effective. And of course, we know what we get out of there. What is it like in Europe, where you observed, and what's going on in Europe and the Netherlands?
The Netherlands is best known for me now, but what I see at the moment is that the core of the action is in reaching the teachers who has to deal with the students, and the students are giving up about the system. That's what we see. They're walking out, they drop out, or they are there but are really there, just sitting there on their chair. And the teachers know that they don't have the connection anymore. So I see what's going on is what I call a silent evolution or a silent revolution, that the state is asking the same things from the schools, the same quality criteria, and the teachers want to do that as well, but they find other ways to get their students within the classroom. But big picture learning is one of the meanings that they try to do that, but we have several concepts in the Netherlands, and what we see is that a lot of schools say to the government, we do this, and in the real context of the classroom they do other things, trying to get the students within, and that's what we call a broken system, I think, in your language. In your saying about the educational system, I think it's everywhere. The people from Turkey, it's a teacher training center. They told me that they are seeing the same problems with their students, but the educational system of Turkey is really different from the Dutch system. because there's a much more emphasis about the subjects like mathematics, and like they do a lot of that, and it's all for everyone, and nobody can choose for anything. It's all the same for every student, and yeah, one size fits all. In Bulgaria and Romania, they have to get in from, I think, the 50s almost. The educational system there is looking a lot like what I had in mind when I was 10 or 12 or 15. And they have to come from a long way, and they go very fast because of the social media. And the students who are using the social media and making fast steps forward faster than their teachers do. So there, I think the change will come from the students. They need it, and they go faster than their teachers and their schools do. I don't know if you recognize that, but that's what I see here, and especially in the countries where I'm working with now.
Yeah, I think that's happening here too. People are recognizing, particularly with the with all the technology that are now available to students. Clearly, they're sort of going out and doing their own learning, and the system is not keeping up. But for the sake of time, I'm going to ask. I think Dan, you had a question.
Thank you. Yes. Would you say that online education is going to be the answer for the majority of students for many of the problems, or do you think that that's a distraction from retooling the brick and mortar schools?
Yeah. So I just wrote about this to our network. And we talk about this a lot. This same thing as the charter thing, same piece that Chris pointed out. Depends on how the technology is used. Our schools use the technology in a way where students are using technology in the places where they have their internships. The technology that adults are actually using. That's one way to use technology. Another way to use technology is through simulations, which are simulations. You know, they take some of the risk and uncertainty out of the real world. And those things are good to learn from. There's a point of saying, well, you stay on the internet to get off the internet. That's the saying that we would use. The other part of this is the replication of the current system just from a textbook to online, which is what a majority of the blended and online learning looks like. They throw in a few more videos and visuals around it, put a few more games so you can get points, but teachers have been doing that for years. You get a gold star, you can get points. I mean, I don't see the difference except there's an absence of sometimes a human being, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. So can online learning do the trick? Well, this is online learning, and it's really, really good stuff. You can meet people and do things that you couldn't normally do. But most of their online learning in schools is relegated to specific content defined narrowly, basically pass a test. Some of it's good if you need tutorial, and some of it in full doses and large doses, I think, can have some serious effects. And if it's around busting a union or around management, those are adult issues that using these technology applications for as well. And I think we got to be careful about defining what the issue is and not confusing it in terms of the systemic change once again, and saying this is the adults having a political conversation rather than a learning conversation.
So I know we should wrap up here. I want to give each of you an opportunity, because this is the big question, which, you know, I'm going to give you only like 2 or 3 minutes to answer each. Right? It'll be easy. What could happen that would radically allow for the proliferation an evolution, if not a revolution, of our current education system? Or is it not possible?
Well, I'm not. Obviously, I don't think it's going to be a revolution but a series of disruptions or evolutionary pieces. I mean, the world changes and it doesn't change in a lot of ways. So, what more accurate portrayals? I'll give you a couple of examples, and this is going to take us off topic a little bit. So, there's a lot of data around sleep, when students learn best, and there's a lot of data around glucose levels, when adults as well as young people make better decisions and are more aware. Where is that data being used to help people learn, make decisions, and be together? It's out there. It's fairly scientific. It's been replicated. Should school start at 7 o'clock in the morning for high school students when they're asleep? And yet they have to, and should school start for teachers at that hour when they're probably more awake as adults? Can online learning be a help in that? Yeah. So asking the right questions can be real disruptions, and if we ever start asking really the right questions around our biological makeup and how we learn, there's some possibilities, but it really doesn't look like pieces of the system that we have. And I think we're still arguing about adult conversations rather than around learning, and these are big deals. So I don't know if I answered your question as well as you want me to, Chris, because I don't have a crystal ball and I don't have the answer to that. I'd have to really think about it, and even if I thought about it, I don't know if I have the answer. I know that we try to deal with it by having the schools that we have and trying to have influence.
Thank you. Hanneke, you haven't had a lot of time to talk, so I want to give you an opportunity to say what you think could happen so that we can.
I think that there are some change. What I said before, there are some changes going on, but they are not obvious and they are not there to see for everybody. But they are there, and I think there's a great need for schools or for students and schools to do other things than they do at the moment. And I see that in the other countries that I'm now working with. I see that in my own country, and I don't think it's really a revolution, but I think that there are changes going on at the moment already, and at some time we'll see them all together, and then we say these were the years of really going in another direction. And it's more a belief than that I can give you figures or graphics to prove that, but it's what I feel, and I'm 30 years in this business now, and this is for the first time that I feel that I have a lot of people walking with me, teachers in schools who want things done. They want to do things in another way than they do till now. And the main thing that they want to do is get people together, not only online, but getting people together in real life. That is the quickest way to learn for students of the age of the high school age, at last. That's the group I'm working with, the group of teachers. So I think that when we stick together, and when one person starts to dance, in some moment people will dance with them, and other people will come, and after all we are all dancing together. And I think that will be the same for education as well. I hope you can do something with that. It's not so eloquated as as Elliot does, but for me it's more of a feeling.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for joining us today from 2 different time zones, and we're in the middle. Thank you very much. And yeah, you know, we're going to talk about what we heard and what we're taking away from this. I'll report back to you guys what our conversation is like, and really appreciate you jumping in with this little experiment how to do this online stuff. I always find that best learning happens in conversation. So a lot of our class has been, this hasn't been as much of a conversation, and maybe we have to figure out to have more conversations across communities and across people like yourselves who have been really working hard to show that there are other possibilities. So I really appreciate that. So thank you both very much. So anyway,
Thank you.
everybody's clapping here. So I'll give out a sign.
All right. Take care now, everybody.
All right. Well, I'll flip this to YouTube, and then I'll report back. Okay.
Okay. All right. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye bye.